Hiya, I hope you're keeping well. Today I'm going to go through some tips. If your eyes aren't perfectly symmetrical, which most of us will find that they aren't, how you can use shadow and liner to just kind of make them look a bit more symmetrical. Now this was a video request that came in, but it's something that lots of people have, so hopefully you'll find it useful. As always, everything I've used is listed in the description of the video, so if you click to make it a full screen, the title will come up along the top, click the arrow next to it and a full list of products will drop down. One thing I wanted to touch on at the top of the video, whether you're new here or I haven't told you this about myself yet, but I've been a makeup artist for 11 years now, and this thing with eyes not being perfectly symmetrical is really normal. So many people have this. I have a touch of it. It's not the easiest to show you on the screen, but I definitely notice it depending on which makeup look I'm kind of doing or creating. And one of the things I would say to you is, I often say this with like makeup for hooded eyes and things like that, just ignore where the lines of your eyes actually are and work your way around them and where you want to put your colour. The two things I'm going to use to really create this today is a neutral eyeshadow palette. This one is the Sahara Dunes palette from Collection. It's $4.99, really recommend it. And then I'm going to use a Peaches and Cream liner in Memphis. I can't remember how much these are. I think they're about £6 or £7. Both really great, and your liner in particular is going to be the key here. So to begin, nice and simple, I'm going to line the waterline with a pencil. Now, I also want you to do the tight line up here, and that's why I do the liner first, so that if you want to kind of pull your lid back in any way, you're not going to disrupt any eyeshadows. Just to mention, the quickest way to do that is to put the pencil on the lid, close your eye and run it across, and you'll do the two at the same time, but I can't do that because I've got contact lenses in. Just quickly, while we're talking about eyeliner, Bex, you'd asked me recently for tips on how to prevent your pencil from printing to the upper lids. Now, one of the things I always like to emphasise in these videos is that I don't want you to feel like you've got to use exactly what I'm using. Just substitute these tips with whatever you've already got. But when it comes to your pencil liner, the one that you choose does make a big difference. So for example, and there's different things that you're going to want for different things. The Peaches liners are really creamy and buttery. They glide on really easily. If you don't like anything too scratchy or you've got sensitive eyes, they're going to be really easy for you to use. And they're also great if you like to kind of buff your liner into your makeup. Absolutely brilliant. However, because they're so creamy, if you're prone to things running, you might prefer something that will kind of set and solidify, in which case I would actually really recommend the Cosmetics Superhero No-Tug liners. Now these are a gel consistency. They glide on and then they set. The pros and cons of this would be, you've got about 30 seconds to work with these if you're blending them into your makeup. So you do have blending time, but not as much as a creamy pencil. But once they are on and locked, they're not going anywhere. So what I would say to you is, have a look at different, what would you prefer from your pencil? Do you want it to be really easy to buff, blend, glide, do loads of things with? Go for something softer like a kohl. And then if you prefer something that isn't going anywhere, either one of those kinds of gel formulas that will set, or I haven't used this personally, but there is, what is it called? I can think of the brand Inglot. I think it's called Waterline. Basically, whenever I mention anything to do with liner on this page, people come back and say you need to try the Inglot Waterline, which I will get round to. It's probably Waterline, isn't it? Thinking of it. But anyway, a mixing medium to create something that will set can be much better as well. So now that I've got the liner in the waterline, what I want to do is essentially, I'm going to create like a soft winged shadow today, and I'm going to look forward on and try and create the wings without paying attention to the shape of the eyes. I know that sounds a bit strange, but basically, if I were to do a perfect millimetre along that lash line and a perfect millimetre along that lash line, if the eyes aren't symmetrical, then the makeup won't be. Whereas if I focus on getting the wings symmetrical and ignore the shape of the eyes, this is where the magic will happen. So I'm going to start with this kind of copper shade in the corner here. and just gently buff a little wash of this along the eye, and kind of with a vision to flick it out a little bit at the ends. Now I'm keeping the eye open as I do this. I'm not going to take it all the way in. I want to wing everything out for the purpose of this particular shape, but you can do whatever you would like to do. Can you see as well how much easier it is to create this kind of winged shape with a darker shadow? I'm not putting as much pressure on myself. If that was like a jet black liquid liner, I'd be here all day getting this even, but we're just using such a soft brush and building it as we go along that we've got the winged effect, but without the kind of panic of it being absolutely perfect. Now, for the majority of that, I kept the eyes open. One of my favourite tips for doing your liner, keep your eyes open so you can see where you're going. I know it sounds so obvious, but so often we do this to do our liner and then you open your eye and you can't quite work out where you need to correct something. Now I'm just going to soften the edge of that slightly. And then when I relax, you've still got wings, but you lose a bit of that shape. So I'm actually going to play with some of this space above the natural crease of my eye. I think for this, I'm going to use some of this taupe shade and just buff this above that liner and through the crease. I'm going to blend that through with a clean brush. But that way, it all just kind of blends out and we don't come to a sudden halt. Now look how messy that is. But if I really gently trace it with a soft blending brush, it will all come together. I've made a bit of a spill here as well. I'll clean that up with some foundation in a moment. But that's lovely and soft and easy. You haven't lost your wing, but it's just calmed everything down a bit. And while I'm tidying up, that's getting a bit shiny, isn't it? So I'm just gonna, bear with me, sort my face out a little bit. Do you know what? I know it's not the point of the video, but my makeup there was just looking a bit, you know when you're just having a bit of a dull skin day? So I've literally just put a bit more CC cream through the T-zone. I'm going to powder around the nose and mouth. That's where your makeup can kind of verge on sweaty. And look at the difference that's made. But anyway, let's get back to the eyes. Okay, I'm just going to return to that first shade and make sure we can still see that darker colour by the lash line. And ideally, we want all of these colours to just blur into one like they're doing now. And now I'm going to go back to my eyeliner. Just going to resharpen it to get it nice and precise again. And then I want you to look at your two eyes and then essentially use your pencil to slightly, you know, your liner flicks, if you've got a slightly uneven eye shape, may look a little bit uneven. But what we're going to do is use this and go over it with a bit of powder to give the illusion of everything being symmetrical. So I am going to start, this would be easier actually with a little hand mirror. Okay, I'm going to start first of all, just kind of lining the outer third of this eye. And then graduating the end to slightly flick out and meet this wing. And while that's still kind of, you know, hasn't set yet, I'm going to use a small Peaches PC07 and buff the edge of this out. And then obviously we've softened it. So just right by that lash line, I'm going to intensify again and then just gently buff the very edge of it once more. Now we've got this really soft, smudgy, undetectable kind of gradient, and we're going to do the same on this side, but as we did with those wings, rather than it being like a perfect millimetre or a perfectly symmetrical size, we're going to look to match the shape. It's interesting, but you can really see here the difference now, can't you? Now on me, I would say that eye looked slightly higher. So I'm not going to take this pencil liner as far across the eye so I can give the illusion of kind of pulling the shape outwards. It was really subtle, but I didn't take that side of pencil as far into the eye, and it's made a little difference to kind of create a bit more symmetry. Okay, while we're here, it's been a little while since I've seen lots of hype for one new thing, and I feel like two things recently are all over my Instagram and TikTok. One of them is JVN hair, and the other one is the Max Stack Mascara. They've got some really bold claims with this, that you can infinitely layer it, you can keep layering it, and it will, you know, continue to build and feel weightless and look great. I thought it was really interesting. This is the same mascara formula, but you can buy two different brushes. So you've got the option of using a micro brush if you find that your lashes are shorter, or if you wanted one for upper lashes and one for lower lashes. Let me just take the excess off the wand there. But there is a very subtle difference between the two. It's the first time I've used it, so I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to use the micro on this side. That's after a fair few coats. Do you know what? I have to admit that is lovely. I've gone over and over those lashes on the top and the bottom, and they haven't clumped. Now for the regular brush. That's the regular brush, and to be honest, I think the finish is the same. It's just, you know, which tool is going to be easier for you to use. And do you know what's nice about it, why it's different? It feels a bit silky. You know when you're trying to get the right shape from your lashes and you want to separate them that bit more, or you see a bit that you want to tweak, and then the more you layer it, you kind of add so much product on that you've got a whole new problem to deal with. I felt like I could tweak and tweak where the mascara was going, and they didn't look heavier, they just looked more separated. In theory, possibly not the best idea to use two different mascaras when we're trying to achieve an even eye look, but there's so many kind of new things at the moment that I wanted to kind of fit a few things into today's video. But one thing I would say to you as well is mascara is really key, because looking at me forward on now, some of those steps, especially when they're a bit more subtle, can feel like they're going on in a bit of a bitty way. But if you were sat across from me now having lunch, you just see the bigger picture, and then having a tiny bit of liner by those lashes makes them look fuller, and it pulls the whole thing together. I hope that was useful. Please let me know if you give it a try and how you get on. As always, I love just kind of making videos to respond to questions, so feel free to let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular you'd like to see. But thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.